All right, Erica Savage, great to have you here. Thanks for joining. So,
Thank you
Erica,
for
you
having me,
help
Luke.
oh, definitely. So, you help people improve their brain health. Erica has a
hmm
podcast and a newsletter called The Reframed Brain, where she shares her best brain health tips. Erica's also an author of the book A Southern Girl's Green Thumb, and you've achieved all of this despite surviving a traumatic brain injury less than 3 years ago. So, I think to start, can you just tell us your story from traumatic brain injury to helping other people to improve their brain health?
Absolutely. Well, again, Luke, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. Always great to talk with people and to also expand the audience a bit as it relates to brain health. So, I am a former political executive. I've been involved with politics for about 20 years now and was working at a political consulting and data management firm. We do work that is worldwide reaching, had functioned as an emissary in another country, ran an international campaign. We've done work on campaigns, both local and within the general election. And we're very, very busy, to say the least, in 2019 and 2020. And I bring all of that forward because it's very important to the story so that your audience will know how what you shared that I've been doing in the past couple of years here from where I've been. And so I was on the road a lot, on a lot of planes, driving a lot, and was actually traveling for work. We had gone from doing work on the general election campaign to senatorial work to doing at that time COVID response work. And so I was actually traveling back and forth and was on my way to do some of that work when I was struck twice by an 18-wheel truck from behind in my car. Um, that accident left me with a myriad of injuries on in my body, and I ended up becoming and still am to some degree, but not at the place that I was, a polytrauma patient, which means essentially that there are a number of areas in my life that are addressed. So home health care, physical therapy, occupational therapy, the list goes on and on. I had up to 9 practitioners at the very beginning of my injury, March 15th, 2021. And um, the more prominent injury was the moderate traumatic brain injury that compromised my executive functioning. And I understand that your audience is a very intelligent audience. So I'm just sharing this as a way to, for those who may not know, but the executive functioning part of the brain, it's a part of the brain that holds reasoning, logic, and emotional response. And what my TBI, meaning traumatic brain injury practitioner, essentially said to my family was that this well functioning executive that you all once knew actually has the functionality of a toddler. So
Mm.
that was March 15th, 2021. Here we are in 2023. And I took a lot of what I'd experienced and wanted to, as I continue to heal, wanted to, because still alongside a pandemic, understanding that people are suffering from anxiety, depression, coronasomnia, as it was named by the American Medical Association, that even though there may not be a diagnosis, that people are having their own private and public struggles, perhaps integrating and understanding what the quote new normal is. So when I started understanding more about my own brain and the functionality of a brain, I collapsed that into what you shared with your audience is the Reframed Brain, which focuses on brain health and unseen injuries as a way to fold everyone into the conversation to say that this prominent organ that we all have, there are ways to improve its functionality and make sure we have longevity. And for those in the audience that may have a diagnosis or just may not be feeling the same way that they felt in 2019, that this is also for you, that you can find yourself in this podcast. So that's essentially my story, Luke. And out of that, the book and other projects came.
Wow. So from the doctors telling your family that you had the executive function of a toddler, I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
like such a big swing to go from working in politics in Washington D.C., big campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
to executive function of a toddler. What was your process from that time to, like, how long did it take to go from that and to start seeing improvements to where, I mean, today unseen injuries is a great phrase, because just looking at you and talking to you, I wouldn't know that anything like that had happened.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Luke. So to address your first question,
Mm-hmm.
I would see improvements. I didn't start myself seeing improvements to probably about 7 months, to be very honest with you. But I was making improvements every day because there was a period of time I wasn't able to walk. I couldn't handle having more than about two people around me. And so it was really, really a real adjustment. I would stand at a door and not remember how to open that door. Like, does the door open by itself? Is there a concierge? I'm not saying concierge in my mind, but how does the door open? Um, and just also remembering, like, okay, I'm standing at this space. What am I supposed to do next? So that was about 7 months. It was about 9 months until like I could drive a car again, as you can imagine, because I went through occupational therapy to make sure that I understood the mechanics and had proper response times in driving. So essentially learning to drive again. Um, I love that you said that you wouldn't know, and that unseen injuries is a great phrase, because as I continue to share that with people, people have that same response, that they've not heard of unseen injuries. But there's so many of us that do have unseen injuries. And even if it's, as I said before, not something that's been diagnosed, but perhaps, we use these terms ambivert, introvert, extrovert. If we find ourselves in a space where it's just like, there's too many people here, I don't feel comfortable, I'm ready to go back home, that stems from something. And so that in and of itself is an unseen injury. So a lot of times that requires um, therapeutics or some own research discovery for ourselves to find out, where does that come from? Because we are created to connect. However, how we connect and how we maintain connection is something that is very deeply personal for each individual, but it's also worth exploring. And so, what the guests that I bring in on the podcast, the Reframed Brain, I'm very thoughtful around who actually shows up in that space, because I want for people to hear themselves in, if I'm talking with someone that's specifically talking about the education spectrum and how people learn, if I'm talking to someone who's in the healthcare space, and there are people in the audience that have been in that space, and perhaps not in an executive capacity, but in the capacity that helps what we see be available for us. And then people can identify and say, I see myself in that person. Whether I'm talking to someone who is involved in environmental issues, and people can say, oh gosh, where you are, the heat, how that is actually impacting, Luke, your own desire to maybe do some of the things that you wanted to do, what impact that's actually having on your body. So I'm very thoughtful, because I do believe that the unseen is has manifest majorly in what we actually see and engage with when we're talking with people or in public
Mm-hmm.
spaces.
Yeah, unseen is such a great phrase, because
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, like, my background was, or how I got into this was, I had really severe anxiety and I had had a panic attack and fainted at work, and that was kind
Mm.
of spurred me to get help. And then I got into the deep breathing, which helped me a ton. And started this YouTube channel and everything. But the unseen
Mm-hmm.
is such a great phrase, because even something like anxiety, you really don't know that someone's going through it. Like, someone could have a panic attack right in front of you, and they may just be good at concealing it, and it would go totally unseen. And kind of rambling here, but I remember seeing, I forget the reporter's name, but there was a news reporter who, his story was he had a panic attack. He on Good Morning America, so he's on live TV. But when you watch it back, it looks like he just kind of like forgot what he was going to say. You didn't realize what exactly was going on internally for him. And so, yeah, this phrase unseen, you've mentioned a lot on your podcast too, the Reframed Brain, Unseen Injuries. So does, uh, and to get to my question here, so unseen injuries, that can include everything from a traumatic brain injury where you've got a physical injury. Does that include uh, also things like anxiety, or coronavirus is one? Like, what all falls under unseen in
Exactly
your
what you
mind?
said, Luke. Oh
Mm-hmm.
gosh, and everything that you said, and I really want to honor what you shared. And looking at your YouTube channel and the guests that you've had on and what you talk about, I want to just pause and say how courageous that is to share, because
Oh, thank you.
many, absolutely, absolutely, it takes, and I've learned this, that the transparency and authenticity is what people are more attracted to, and it takes a lot for a person to stand up and to share specifically something that happened, whether it's in a public space or whether it's in a private space, and essentially relive that through other individuals, through conversations, through, you mentioned this reporter, this journalist that had a panic attack on live television, and then you not only taking in that information but then rewatching that. That's very brave and that's very courageous, and I just want to honor that, and to talk to and to speak to what that says about who you are,
Mm.
um and what it is that you're actually wanting for people to wrap their own mind and arms around. That it's very, very brave, very courageous. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing that out loud again. um Unseen, it covers it's it covers everything, Luke. And when I say everything, anxiety, depression, coronasomnia, what I mentioned before, I'm very intentional about saying alongside the pandemic, because again, what it is that people are experiencing and perhaps don't have the verbiage for, like you talked about with that journalist, that is what we do, in a sense, point people in a direction to say we're not giving anyone a diagnosis, but we are offering up our own personal experiences, our own personal journeys, so to speak, to say this is what it looked like with me, this is what I've experienced, this is what my journey has been thus far, what we do share publicly. I'm sure there's a lot privately as well. However, for people to be able to say, again, like I talked about with the podcast guest, wow, I can see myself. Like, I see some of the things, I hear some of the things that no one, I haven't heard anyone perhaps frame in that way, which
Mm-hmm.
gives the reframed brain, because I want people to actually be drawn and connected to, when we hear someone having a mental break. Well, I don't use that term.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to reframe that and to see that there were a set of experiences that actually triggered a response system that has been happening internally in our body. Now it is happening perhaps in a public and private space where other people may be able to see something is happening. So reframing the language, which for me actually helps people become more empathetic. So I was actually on a show that I do alongside co-hosting weekly on a mainstream channel, and I talked about July being Disability Pride Month, which is the celebration of the American Disability Act. So when people think about disabilities, they think about people that are in a chair, they think about people that are blind or deaf, and all of those individuals are absolutely folks with disabilities. However, disabilities also are anxiety, depression. Disabilities are also anything that um, that readjusts the way that we engage is actually something that requires another set of accommodations. So if that can be, some people frame it as a differing ability, some people reframe it as an exceptional ability. However it is that that looks. However, on the other side of that conversation, after I'd introduced what July was, what it meant, we engaged a person that said, thank you so much for sharing that July was Disability Pride Month and that it was a celebration of the American Disabilities Act. And then that person went on to share that they had differing abilities, exceptional abilities, and that they were high functioning on the spectrum. And they said that it's not something that you would see. It's not something that you would think about Luke. It's not something you would think about me, having to have accommodations to function in a certain space. But they were very, very, they felt very proud to be seen. And I thought to myself, my God, I'm so thankful that in that moment they felt seen and then felt, as you did, Luke, open and safe enough to share what their exceptionality was. And so I said all of that to really say that all of us are really doing our best to try to make it in a very, very new space of the world. However, if we can understand that when we encounter Luke, when we encounter that gentleman that was encountered, that if perhaps you say hello and they don't say hello back, that perhaps they're not being rude, perhaps in their own body, they're trying to bring themselves to a place of ease and calm. If so, just kind of being more empathetic around all of us and with each other.
Wow. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hung up on this word unseen. It describes so much. It's almost whether someone's got a specific event that happened, there's something unseen going on all the time. And then, yeah, the reframing the language. I thought that's a really great thing too, because we see it on the news. Someone has a mental break, and they make a big news story out of it. And this phrase of mental break, it's a little too oversimplified, and it's not helpful to the person, and then it's not really
Mm-mm.
helpful to the listeners either.
Mm-mm.
So yeah, I just love this phrase "unseen" because there's just thinking of how much is going on that's behind the scenes or
Oh my
unseen.
gosh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, they're unseen injuries. And so it is not my place to give anybody a diagnosis. So
Hmm.
even when we hear that word mental break, the images that come up in the mind, the words
Hmm.
that come up, they're harmful. And to be very
Yeah, they're
honest,
harmful.
it's really a lot because of, what we were taught, how we were conditioned, what we heard. Much of how we are shaped is around not so much everything that we hear, but what we see. We learn in
You're
body
right.
language. It's not necessarily the percentage. I want to get this correct. I believe that in body language is really the body makes up 55% of the communication, and
Hmm.
what comes out of our mouths is I think it's hovering around 10 to 15%, but it is
Yeah, and
body
like the
language. So if we,
tonality is it, and sorry.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right, like all of those
Yeah.
pieces, Luke. However,
Hmm.
what the majority, what's most prominent is body language. So if we can just be still and imagine in a moment everything that we've seen, all the information that we've taken in, how that actually breaks down in our old brain and in our new brain, and how that's been demonstrated. And so, how we've seen that play out over and over again to people that we admire, love, authority figures, it has huge implications for exactly as what you said, when we hear these terms, mental break, when we hear these terms, they had a breakdown. And so it grabs the ears and it grabs the eyes, but it is harmful to not only that person, but then it just continues to feed this behemoth of what it
Mm,
looks like for somebody to be um, not um, not in the best health at that moment. So I
yeah.
think kind of like the work that you and I do really is around grounding, resetting people, and again helping people to be more empathetic around terms that we've been conditioned to hear and understand that injuries um, are experiences that have not been um, properly engaged, and that
Hmm. Hmm.
doing breath work, doing the work that I do, helps to reframe, helps to train the mind, body, soul into when this comes up again, because it's going to come up again, just as, sure as the sun rises and sets, that there's a different response system from our body, that we're doing that work to help that and hopefully help other people do it as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking of the mental image when you say the phrase mental break, like there's a mental image that comes to mind, and I think of just the epitome of it is like frazzled hair, um, totally out of control, and
Mm.
it's oversimplifying, and there's more going on. But speaking of breath work, maybe do you mind telling your experience with breath work and how it's helped you through your story?
Oh gosh, absolutely. Breath work has been probably the foundation of my healing, to be very honest with you. I can remember actually being introduced to breath work actually almost a year before my accident, just not even realizing it
Hmm.
because of the yoga and exercises that I had been doing. But when the accident happened, I had my first physical therapist was amazing. I've had three. My first physical therapist was amazing because it was really, really difficult for me to be in a waiting room. So they would immediately kind of get me back into the room, have all the lights down. And so, because my brain was yet healing, I think at that time, my executive functionality was hovering around 30%. Um, One of the things that she would do is she would have me take my socks and shoes off and begin to repeat back to me, grounded to the earth, so that I could reset, coming from my home to being a passenger in the car to actually getting out the car, and even riding in the car was a lot for me because the accident was replaying in my mind over and over
Mm-hmm.
again. So the driver would have to drive very slowly, getting out of the car, going into the facility, not being in the waiting room, going to the from that area into the room. It was a lot of movement, and so she would have me do that as a way to reset my body. So once I would do that, she would then have me do specific breath exercises, which would help the parasympathetic nervous system relax, to feel peace. And that is the part of our nervous system that helps us to relax, that helps us to feel safe, that helps us to feel grounded. And she would have like very light music playing, so that would help the parasympathetic as well too. So that is what started in my brain injury. I would say the breath work practice, and I
Mm-hmm.
continued that in preparing for appointments, be they virtual appointments or if it were an in-person appointment. That would be something that I would do in preparation for that. And if I needed to, once I got to the appointment as well, and my practitioners were all very open and very happy that I had that. tool that I would exercise prior to an appointment, be it acupuncture or whatever it was that I was appointing for.
Mm-hmm. And so types of breathing techniques you were doing, I'm sure it started off just breathing slowly. And how has it
Hmm.
evolved since then?
Oh gosh, into a method that I love, which is 646. Um, just even understanding the practice of breath work is such a profound practice. It is grounding, it's resetting, but it's also sending messages and giving instructions to our cells, to our blood. It is really profound. And so 646 is, I found to be phenomenal. And in 646, what the person does is essentially they ground themselves. I always have people, if they feel comfortable, to keep their eyes closed, if not, to keep them open. Just to take a moment and just kind of relax the shoulders and to make sure that they feel safe where they are, to let themselves know that they are safe, that they are well. Um, and then if they feel comfortable with putting their hands on their thighs, one on each thigh, um, and just again relax the shoulders. And usually, when people get to that place, they report already feeling a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
And then I let them know that I'll be guiding, so they will hear my voice. And what we'll be doing is breathing very slowly for 6 seconds. We're going to hold for 4 seconds, and then we're going to exhale slowly for 6 seconds. So then that would look like taking a deep breath and then inhaling through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Holding 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhaling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It feels
And
great.
see, isn't it amazing? I
Mm-hmm.
love
Mm-hmm.
646, and I have,
Mm-hmm.
um, again, had the pleasure of doing it live. And what people report back after doing that, like, oh my goodness, Erica, that always is a really amazing feeling. And it's something we can't see. We cannot see breath, but
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
really has powerful, powerful, powerful implications once we're aware and we're breathing with a set of instructions. It's really powerful.
Mm-hmm. And so with the 646, do you recommend doing it just one breath cycle, or doing it back to back repeatedly for several minutes?
I usually ask people to do 3 cycles of 646, and in
Mm-hmm.
between each cycle to actually just, usually after the first cycle, there's like, wow, I feel so much better. Some people will report that um, after the first, they feel so much better. And so they're like, I'm good to go. So I'm like, okay, if you feel good. But what 3 cycles does is it offers training. And so in between those cycles, if they want to repeat an affirmation, if they want to, some people have reported back crying. If they, want to take like, have a journal, some of my people, I'll say, for keep a journal right by. So if something comes up for you, be able to write that down. But for practice with one to one or group, I normally do
Mm-hmm.
3 cycles of 646.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
because
did
the
you
goal
learn
is for it
six
to become
four? Oh,
habit.
good.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
goal is for
That's
it to become habit. Yeah.
yeah, to breathe slowly and deeply, even when you're not thinking
Mhm.
about it. Yeah,
Mhm.
because when I was
Mhm.
dealing with my anxiety, my breathing was really erratic. I was a software
Mm.
engineer, so I'd be working at my desk, and I'd realized, oh, I've been holding my breath for like 30 seconds, and then I'd take like a fast inhale and a fast exhale. And that's really how I was breathing when I
Mhm.
fainted at the office. And the breath work, first of all, helped me to relax just in the moment, but over
Mm-hmm.
months of practicing it, got to where I could breathe slowly and deeply, even when I wasn't thinking about it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when the improvements really started to come along. Um, and so the 646, did
Absolutely.
you learn it through yoga, or is this is like a new technique to me? And I've known a lot of breathing techniques. So where did you first learn the 646, or did you find it on your own?
I actually, this is something that I made up on my own. And I say made up to say like there's definitely the
Mm-hmm.
influence of I practice hatha yoga. So there's definitely the
Mm,
influence of yoga because hatha yoga is very slow, very intentional. It's for beginners, experience, like wherever anyone is with as it relates to yoga, but it is something that I found myself that worked for me in my own breathwork practice. And so I thought to myself, wow, like this is really working for me with the brain injury. I feel
mm,
like this will be helpful to crowds and multitudes of people. So, in some of my corporate engagements, I had just the honor of doing this with students and to watch young people who they themselves, you mentioned that you're an engineer. And so I have two people in my family, two uncles in my family that are engineers. And understanding that level of work, most people that are drawn to engineers are very black and white, so very logical in thinking that you all do hold your breath to a certain degree because there's a lot of analytics that's involved in what you do, that you can be very driven on a thing and essentially almost hold
mhm,
your breath um,
mhm.
while doing the thing. So they're very to the
Mhm.
penny Excel sheet, spreadsheet, very much so very left
Yeah.
brain, so to speak.
Uh, you're right. You're totally right. I mean, that's the funny
Very
thing
much
about doing
so.
engineering work is you think like, oh, I need to focus so hard for a second that I'm gonna stop breathing, which is the totally wrong approach because you can focus way
Hmm.
better if your breathing is slow and rhythmic. And for me, breathing for focusing, breathing 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, and just doing that over and over. And that helps me get into those flow states and stay focused for a long time. So the
Right.
646, when I first heard you talk about it, stuck out to me because I love this 6 in, 6 out. So adding and then adding the
Hmm.
hold in between. So I might, I've got this breathing app. I don't know if I told you about it. It's called Pocket
You
Breath
did.
Coach, and I've got a
Hmm.
lot of preloaded breathing exercises in there, but you can also customize the breathing patterns. Maybe I'll add
Hmm.
the 646 in there because it feels really good, and we can call it the reframed breathing exercise or something. But
Yeah, please do. I love to send over
yeah.
something to you. I mean, it's definitely something that I found success in my clients with. So yeah, do let me know
Hmm.
because I'd be happy to send that over with me talking the audience through that because that's something that I've been doing, for a while
Yeah.
now. But yeah, I think that it is incredibly important because to learn these techniques because these are not things that we learn. We are taught do well in school, go to college, get a good job, and stay there and get benefits essentially, marry, have children. Like they're very programmed um, functionalities, which get it. However, functioning in the real world requires a level of awareness, and many of us are just have been conditioned to do certain things, um, and the rest will take care of itself. And that's not necessarily true. There are
Mm.
modalities that we require in order to be what we are, which is living beings. We are not computers. We are not built like
Hmm.
computers. We require sleep. We require rest. We require connectivity. And so this whole kind of conditioning of just do is really
Mm-hmm.
harmful. But again,
Mm-hmm.
through the Reframe Brain, through the work that you do, helping people honestly connect with their own humanity so that they
Mm-hmm.
themselves will connect with other humans in a more empathetic way is really what's needed because of how many of us are just conditioned to go forth and do without
Mm-hmm.
understanding that we're living, breathing beings. And that's why I wrote the book, A Southern Girl's Green Thumb, 9 Easy Care Plants to Add to Your Space, because those plants are have healing properties in them. And so if we can see that through living things around us that require a level of affection, they require care, they also require touch. Um, with the watering, with the
Mm-hmm.
fertilizing, with touching the leaves and cleaning the leaves, that we can also be reflective, and these are things that we need as well. They clean the air. So all of these things, the
Mm-hmm.
breath
Mm-hmm.
work, the plants, they all work together.
Yeah, the plants are. My wife has a lot of plants, and it changes the whole environment of the home. You know, to have. I don't know if it's the color green or is it that they're actually living plants in your home too. But yeah, plants make such
Hmm.
a difference in the home. How long
Hmm.
ago did you start taking care of plants, and what led you to write the book?
I started during my brain injury because I wanted something to take care of. And so I had so many people being so kind and so generous to me. And I remember telling one of my friends, I was like, don't send money, like just send me plans. And she actually kicked it off for me. And so I started in 21, and collected over 60 plants. As a person who, in my office, I never had a living plant. Never. It was always a lovely silk arrangements. And so to go from not having anything to having plants, I, I wanted the book to be, number one, something where people could go from interest to purchase. That was my main thing. I wanted people to see the beautiful pages and go like, wow, these plants are really amazing, and be able to go and get the plant. I also created it for children because this is the summer. And so for parents to be able to help their children with reading, with math, how much water did you give your plant? Did you measure it out? And have them to be responsible. So this book is for children, teenagers, adults, and then also for the disabilities community, because I have disabilities. And so I wrote a book as a person with disabilities. And this book specifically is written in a way that is very easy, very quick read. But again, someone can pull out their phone and go, okay, I don't have any plants, which I've had people come back and tell me that they did. Erica said this is an easy plant to take care of for. She did it with a brain injury and is doing it with a brain injury. I can do it. Like, I'm like, take it to your favorite nursery. Oh gosh, excuse me. Take it to your favorite
Yeah.
nursery, or to your home improvement store, and let them know this is the plant that I want. I was like, and you can go get it. So yeah, I love the joy, the peace, and the healing properties that are in plants.
So do you still have 60 plants, or have you scaled back, or do you have more?
I've scaled back. I've
Yeah.
scaled back.
Okay.
I have about 40 now, which is a lot more manageable. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's still a lot, but not as many as 60.
Uh, so a broad question: what's on your mind these days in terms of brain health and what you're working on?
Longevity, wanting people to actually understand, like I read a lot of the neuroscience and data coming forward about long-term care and the beds that are being built out, because people are living longer, but they're living longer with a lot more health issues. And
Mm,
so that there are ways to preserve the brain, to keep the brain from urging a lot more rapidly. I'm always thinking
mhm,
about dementia and Alzheimer's. People that have brain injuries are more susceptible to brain to
mhm,
dementia and Alzheimer's. So just thinking about and figuring out how to, because brain health is not sexy, so to speak. And I say
mhm,
this as somebody who was involved in politics and media for a significant amount of time. So thinking of ways to really continue to raise the bar so people become more aware. I actually have a virtual event coming up. It'll be August the 22nd, and this will be centered around um, Disabilities Pride Month and
mm,
mental health. And so I'm really,
mhm,
really excited about that. It's August the 22nd. And so for people that want to know more about that, excuse me, if you go to the reframedbrain.com, I have a weekly newsletter that comes out on a Monday because Monday is one of my favorite days of the week. I don't believe that Monday has to be the Monday blues or be a day where people load. It is an opportunity to reset and really to set intentions for the week and make it a great week. So if they go to the reframebrain.com, they can get my newsletter and be abreast of what I have coming up. So, really wanting people to understand this fantastic organ that we have is definitely one that we want to care for, and there are ways to care for it to ensure that we live long, healthy lives.
That sounds great. And yeah, I highly recommend your newsletter. I subscribed, and the
Thank you.
your 5 brain health tips were really good that
Thank
you get right away
you.
when you subscribe. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a playlist curated with all of the people that subscribe in mine. So I hope that the
Mm-hmm.
playlist also serves to be kind of like a little bit of joy because music has exceptional brain health
Mm-hmm.
properties in it as well.
And then, do you work with people one on one, or do you do group coaching, or is it mainly through your newsletter and content, and then your virtual event soon?
So I do one-to-one clients, and like I have a corporate clients as well too. So I'm able to engage a significant number of people at one time. Um, I've not done any group coaching just yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I am opening it up for group coaching this year. So that's going to be pretty
Mm-hmm.
exciting. It'll only be like a cohort of 5 people because I want people to feel that level of one-to-one attention, but then also
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by people that are engaging in the same type of um, healing, so to speak, that
Mm-hmm.
they are. And that'll be a 90-day group coaching for 5 people that I'm opening up.
Oh, that sounds great. Congrats on
Yeah,
starting
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
And if someone wants to be involved with that, is the best way to subscribe to your newsletter and look for updates.
Yeah, so they can subscribe to the reframebrain.com. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
in one of the, I believe it's the top, it's the Great Reset, and they can sign up there.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're interested in the group coaching, there'll be a link that'll be coming out later this month. But if when you go to the reframebrain.com, there is a section for if people have inquiries. My team, which I have to shout out my team, the Reframe Brain team, very, very awesome. So if I don't get back with someone, they are really great about connecting with people and responding within usually 24 hours. So if someone is in
Mm-hmm.
your listening audience is really wanting to get in the group coaching, they can send a request from the reframe through the
Mm-hmm.
reframebrain.com,
Mm-hmm.
and my team will get back with you in 24 hours.
Well, that sounds great. We'll put a link to that down below, as well as a link to your book about
Thank
Southern
you.
Girls. Let me get the name right. A Southern Girls Green Thumb.
Yes, it's
I
so
love it.
girl it's Guhl, a Southern Girls
Yeah,
Green Thumb,
Guhl.
because I'm from the South, and so
Mm,
we in Georgia we say girl. Like when my tongue gets really relaxed and I'm around my
mm.
family and friends, like girl. So when you see the UHL, that's me, and it is
That's
paying
your voice.
homage to my Georgia roots. That is absolutely my voice. Yeah.
Well, Erica, I've really enjoyed talking to you. Definitely, if anyone wants to work with Erica or just subscribe to her newsletter, I'll put the link down
Mhm.
below. Thank you so much
Thank
for coming on.
you. It was my pleasure. Thank you. I'm excited about Pocket Breath and us working together with 646. That'll be amazing.
Mm-hmm.